Welcome in to the episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. In this week's episode, we have Dean Peterson on the podcast. Dean is the head baseball coach at the University of Charleston in West Virginia. Now, Dean is not like the typical college baseball coach that we have on this podcast. The typical college baseball coach that we have on the podcast, they've coached their entire life. That's the only thing that they've ever known. They've coached and they've played. That's pretty much it. Dean has had several other careers outside of baseball before he became a full-time college baseball coach. So prior to coaching college baseball, he was a pastor. Before that, he was a Secret Service agent protecting the president. He was a Secret Service agent for 11 years. So he brings a completely different perspective to coaching players and just a completely different life perspective than most of the people we have on this podcast. And I think that's what makes this conversation really cool, really unique, and something that you're going to get a lot of value from. So if you enjoy the show, please make sure you share it on social media, text it to a friend. Let's try to get this episode to as many people as possible. Hope you enjoyed this episode with Dean Peterson. All right, we now welcome onto the podcast Dean Peterson. Dean, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks, Patrick. Just awesome to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
So my first question to you is, you're a head coach, Division II head coach in Charleston, West Virginia. What we're recording this, it's July 30th. And I'm kind of curious myself personally, like what does the summer look like as a head coach in college baseball?
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's different for everybody. For me, it's been a mixture of trying to be out to various uh, tournaments and watching 26 and 27 players, and also being out there in summer collegiate games, seeing guys that are in the portal that we're talking to and trying to replace several of the guys that we lost. I have 7 of my pitchers are now at Division I programs from last year's team. So obviously, things like that happen. They leave a void, and so then you're trying to find replacements. And I think we were fortunate in the cycle to get a couple of 25s late that were still available and potentially had decommitted from other programs and things like that. But you're still out there trying to find a transfer or two for sure. So that's the summer. Try to catch your breath at some point from the season and the grind of the year. So try to spend some time with your family and do those things that you should be doing as a husband and a father. Um, and then it's also preparing for the upcoming year. We spend a lot of time, if I'm honest, on calls like this with recruits. Even though COVID is long gone, I love the face-to-face Zoom interaction with recruits. So we probably do at least 1 or 2, sometimes 3 of those a day in the evenings throughout the summer as we're talking to the players and going through our recruiting process.
And when you're doing those Zoom calls, like what is it that you're looking for from the recruit standpoint? Like is there something that you're looking to hear or not hear, or just like what value do you find in doing those?
Yeah, for us, character's king, right? Like uh, I jokingly said to a pitching guy that I know who runs a facility, an awesome dude, and he has tons of really good arms and produces some great arms. And he's like, I got a guy, he's 88 to 90, right-handed pitcher. I'm like, yeah, I think there's about 17,256 of those guys just in the Atlantic region. So, obviously, as coaches, everybody's looking at the same thing. When they go to an event, they go to a showcase, they see somebody play a game. Every single coach, regardless of what level you coach at, sees something in the players that stand out on the field and have a skill set that they know will translate to their level. Right. So what's the distinction? And that's what we're always searching for. What's going to be different about the player who succeeds at Charleston in our environment? And so honestly, we're trying to discover how is this person at answering sometimes difficult questions? How are they at understanding their own self-awareness? And so different components of their personality that we find important. One of the nice things about being in law enforcement is that you understand how to investigate and ask people questions and draw things out of them. So um, that's really it. It's a lot of conversation to try to get under the hood, so to speak.
How does speaking of law enforcement, I know we had talked on the phone. I think it was last week or maybe it was the week before, in prepping for this podcast, and I had told you on the phone that there could be this podcast could go a million different ways. I mean, we could spend the entire time talking about your several previous careers in law enforcement and Secret Service, or on being a pastor, that type of a thing. But how did I guess I'm since you mentioned law enforcement, like what exactly was your background? Like what was exactly did you do for 11 years in law enforcement?
Yeah, so I was a part of the Secret Service uniform division. So everybody, when they think of Secret Service, they think of the guys in the sweet looking Oakleys, the nice custom suits by the president, right? So yeah, those are the special agents, and I was not that. And so I was a uniformed police officer. So a lot of my functionality early in my career was exactly that: being at the White House, being the police force, making sure people were obeying traffic laws and just keeping the area safe, um, along with access control and all the other things that you do in the Secret Service. um, then that kind of graduated to different steps because ultimately I'm a huge motorcycle guy. My dad literally raised me on the tank of a motorcycle, driving me around, from literally my earliest recollections of life. That was it. So um, my the tail end of my career, I got to be in the motorcade support unit, which is the motorcycle guys that lead the president, vice president, foreign heads of state, and all that through town on motorcades and do those things. So yeah, different jobs and different things, and lots of travel to all over the country and all over the world. Wherever the president or somebody important goes, we're going with them, and so I feel very blessed to have experienced a lot of cool history and be a part of special things that I know most people just haven't been a part of. So
From a leadership standpoint, you were obviously around some people who are really high up. I mean, you're around some big dogs, being around the
yes.
president, and then obviously other foreign affairs as well. So other presidents too, and just people who are really up and have a lot of power. And I assume you picked up some things from a leadership standpoint, and maybe even subconsciously. I don't even know. But what are some of the things, or is there anything specific that you took away from that experience that you feel like has helped you today as a leader?
Yeah, I think anytime you can rub shoulders with people who have to make decisions at that level and see how they respond in key situations and moments, you're going to glean something of value. And even as you scale it back and see, some of the Secret Service leadership maybe make a decision in a big spot where things are going sideways, and um, there's a lot of things that happen that nobody ever knows about. So that's probably a good thing, or people would be more panicked. But so I think that is it. I have gotten a special glimpse and this special like space of understanding how to be calm in the middle of chaos and to be confident when there's uncertainty. And if I'm honest, like that's what I think a lot of coaches are struggling with right now in the current environment, right? It's so uncertain. We're literally one lawsuit away from rule changes. We're one, you know, legal precedent away from a completely new set of rules that Division 1 schools have to abide by. So if I were at that level, like I certainly would be feeling the pressure that they feel, and I watch my friends that are at that level and interacting with them, and I feel very fortunate to be in this space where I am right now, and not maybe have to deal with the immediacy of those. I just get a little bit of the ripple effect from it. But yeah, I think that's it. Like when other people are kind of losing their minds, I'm probably the calmest head in the room. And when things seem murky or uncertain, I'm gonna take action and be confident in it because I know who I am as a person and what we are as a program. And I'm able to drive through those things, I think, a little better than some other folks.
How does one get better at doing that? Is that something that's just experience? Is it self-awareness? Is it certain tactics that you've just learned about yourself throughout the years, and then that's what helps you? Like, if someone were listening to that and be like, "Man, that's something I want to get better in as a coach," what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so it starts with that first part. It's absolutely everything in life is anchored on our own personal identity, right? So I'll it's on my shirt, like, and I wear it on my sleeve. Faith is important to me, so faith gives me a foundation that allows me to know that my identity is in something bigger than myself or the things that I accomplish or all the cool stuff on my resume or whatever may happen. So I think as a person, I think we just need to have this anchored sense of identity that is about who we are as a person, right? Once we can operate from that space, we're going to be a little bit more confident to make a decision knowing that the outcome, right? We hear people say it all the time, like, don't be consumed by the results, trust the process. Well, it's really hard to actually do that unless you know who you are and you have a sense of personal self-worth and value. Um, and then once you've established that, and again, that can come through a variety of things, but you need to establish that identity. Then it absolutely is the reps of being in chaotic, difficult situations and just making a decision, and sometimes it's going to be the right one, sometimes it's going to be the wrong one. But then being able to pivot and adjust and recognize, like you said, the word self awareness. Self awareness is such a vital trait and quality for everybody to possess. Um, but to have the self awareness to say, "Yep, this probably isn't working, and that wasn't the right decision. I need to course correct here, and I need to make that decision confidently, uh, just the same as I did that initial one that wasn't the right one." And so, um, I think that again, I think we all draw from different experiences, and you have to parse it out. So you see people in the personal performance or personal growth space, right? You see a guy like David Goggins or Cam Hanes, and these guys who are doing these ultra marathons, and like people always talking about, hey, you've got to go do hard stuff. Yeah, there is something to doing physically demanding and challenging things that build resilience and help you overcome things and build the qualities that will make you a little better in those chaotic situations. But if I'm honest, you need to go like solve complex problems. You need to put yourself in situations where the landscape is constantly evolving and it's uncertain, um, to really, really thrive at that next level of space in my mind. And I, I'm not advocating for this new wave of hiring only former law enforcement people or military people in the coaching space, because there's some amazing coaches, but I just think there's certain values that you get from life perspective, right? If you've been in the military and you've seen friends and soldiers, die, and you've experienced difficult things, you've been shot at, right? Like you're a firefighter and you've rushed into a burning building. Like that just gives you a completely different perspective on life and adversity and difficulties that allows you to really, run with things like you. So I immediately I'm thinking of my friend Mike Roberts, who's now at Mississippi State, who's one of their assistant coaches. A guy who was a former firefighter, and like that experience just it kind of hardened him in a way that he has a similar perspective. So I love always talking to Mike and riffing on things that are baseball specific. But yeah.
Yeah, you brought up some incredible points there. I wanted to highlight. I think the identity piece is incredibly important, and some people may be like, "Well, how does that help you from a baseball standpoint?" Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of players who listen to this too. I mean, a lot of coaches listen, but a lot of players will listen to this too. And um, the identity piece is so important. And I had a guy on the podcast several years ago, and I've worked with them one on one quite a bit too. His name's Dr. Brent Walker. I've talked about him before. he's with the Dodgers and runs their own mental performance. And one of the things he told me, because I was asking him about like different breathing routines and this or that, and he goes, look, like none of that stuff matters if your perspective is off. If you don't have a good identity about yourself and like you don't have a good perspective, like you can have all the tricks and drills in the world, it's not going to matter at all. And in the example that we talked about was like, if you believe your identity is a 250 hitter, you're just an average 250 hitter, like you will find ways to get yourself back down to that 250 mark if you start out the season really hot, because you don't actually believe that you're that 340 or 350 hitter when you start out the season hot. So and I resonate that myself, because that was, I think, me. Was like there's times maybe I started off a little bit hot, but like deep down I really didn't believe I was that good of a hitter. And so over the course of the season, it sounds crazy, but you do find ways to get back to where you believe you truly are. So you saying that right there, Dean, it resonates. And I think that's how it's applicable to people who are in baseball, at least in my experience. Maybe you have a different experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you talked about it, and that's the beauty of our world, right? Is like you have this amazing amalgam of perspectives and understanding, right? So you're talking, and immediately I'm going to John Gordon and like people who are in that perspective of like you have to positively reinforce your self talk. The things that you're telling yourself are so important, and if you're reminding yourself that, hey, no, I am this, I am confident in this about myself and these qualities that I possess. And so, why faith is so important to me, and especially in this space, is because it's a distinctly separate anchor that exists outside of Dean Peterson, right? And everything about faith, and I'm sure everybody has whatever their personal view and interface with that is, sometimes horribly bad and sometimes wonderfully beautifully awesome. But the true biblical sense of who we are is that we have purpose. We were made like distinctly crafted by God, like not accident, but purposeful. Like you are here purposefully, and you possess purpose, value, and unique gifts that nobody else in the entire world possesses. Like, think about that. In all of human history, Patrick Jones possesses unique things about him that no one. It's like you're like a snowflake, brother. Like nobody else in all of human history has been or will be like you. It's so special and unique that nobody could add the value to the world that you can, right? And like when we understand that, oh man, that's so powerful to me. And I wish more people would at least get that perspective of faith, if even if they don't buy in completely. If you can get that part, that would be awesome.
Well, I think such a big part of it is who is the one who is educating you on the faith component. Because I'm sure if you have it's no different than coaching. If you're at a young age and you have your first experience playing for a coach like is a negative one, then you're probably going to, someone asks you about coaching, you're like, oh, that's terrible. Like, it's a waste. What a waste of time. Like, I don't need any coaches or anything like that. Versus if it's the contrary and they build you up and they help you out and work with you and things like that, then you're gonna have a completely different perspective on it. I'm sure I would assume that's probably the case when it comes to faith too.
Yeah, for sure. Again, probably a whole podcast about some of the
Yeah.
bad faith experiences that I've been through. And I've had some awesome mentors. I'm part of this coach's Bible study. We meet via Zoom every Monday. Mike Lynch is the pastor out of Atlanta who kind of started this thing. But there are coaches from all over the country, all kinds of different levels. And so, like, I find these spaces, RFCA director is a guy who, comes in and talks to me and speaks to me and things like that. So, everybody needs mentorship, as you kind of alluded to, in every single way. But ultimately, I think faith is most beautifully experienced through the person of Jesus Christ. Like if you understand who Jesus truly is, and you have a mentor that can actually reflect the authenticity, the genuineness, the love of Jesus, uh, again, I'm not saying it's 100% accurate, but like if you watch a show like The Chosen, and you can start to uncover the humanity of Jesus. You can see him laughing, you can see him crying, like that he was a person that can relate to us in a different kind of way. And I think that's it. I think, faith has all this huge spectrum, especially in Christianity, right? From Catholicism to all 10,000 denominations that exist. So everybody has a little bit of nuanced thinking in it, but ultimately, if you can arrive at a space where you can develop a relationship with somebody who recognizes what I shared with you about our purpose and can relate to you and connect to you in a certain way, that when they talk about Jesus and how much Jesus loves you and cares, and God's not this cosmic angry old man like slamming his fist every time you screw up, and is so just angry at you all the time because you're a total mess of a person and a horrible individual. Like that is not it at all. That's like the furthest thing from it. And I've been in churches that, man, you walk away from it and you feel like that's what God is. But so yeah, again, like we could go on and on about this side of it for sure. um and I would gladly do it, but as with anything, right, it's the circle of people that you connect yourself with. And hopefully, at some point in everybody's journey, they find somebody who authentically just loves them the way that God loves them, and can accept them for who they are in that space, and recognize that we're all the same. We're like, I'm no better just because I have a certain degree, or I have the title of pastor and went through that process. Like, that doesn't make me in any way, shape, or form better than any single person on earth. Like, I am a horrible, broken person who does lots of things that I shake my own head at. And like, oh my gosh, same thing again. I keep doing this. What a screw up. And that's part of it. We're all on this journey together, and we want to know that we're encouraged to fall and then be picked back up by Jesus and the grace that we all have. So, yeah, it's just finding your right people, man. It's like people who can authentically represent what Jesus truly is. I think that's the value in it.
It's well said. How do you go about incorporating? Obviously, faith is very important to you, and I assume that you would try to incorporate that within your program that you're running now. Like, what are some of the ways that you do that? Because I assume it'd be maybe it is. I would assume it'd be a little bit tough, right? Because you're talking about playing time. It's like you can't play everybody, right? And
Yeah.
you can't make everybody happy. And there's different things that there's only 9 spots on the field. Like, so how do you go about incorporating this faith component that's clearly very important to you into your program?
Yeah, so I think, one, we're honest about it in the recruiting process with people. We're like, hey, a lot of the core tenets and the principles and pillars of our program are built on Christian principles. And I tell people, I'm like, I even if you don't believe what I believe, that's fine. But hopefully, we can all agree that things like the golden rule, treat people the way that you want to be treated, that's pretty common sense for everybody, right? And um, they're just biblical truths that I think just have universal application. You don't have to accept the whole thing, but that's going to be a part of it. And so I'm honest about it in the process. And then we have team meetings every week, and I have a lot of guys. Obviously, you're going to attract people who are similar to you, and so I have a lot of guys who faith is important to them as well. And I'll bring up a point, and we're having a conversation about some part of our culture, or some element of our program that's foundational, and they are the ones drawing hey, here, oh, and this is what the Bible says about that, coach, and this is what I'm thinking. So that's just kind of a natural rhythm to it. And then I was a chaplain for baseball chapel, which does all the minor league and major league baseball teams. And so I had friends through that, and they do chapels for us, and our FCA guy and some other people. So like, we have chapel before Sunday games when we play in the season. Our players have a Bible study. So they're just elements to it like that. But then you actually started to lean into the most foundational point, right? I have to find a way to tangibly live this out and model it in a space where there's going to be disappointments. There's going to be frustration at what I put on the lineup card and who's on the travel roster, all those things. And it goes back to, kind of this impassioned plea that I was making to you of like, no, Patrick, there is nobody in all of human history like you that possesses those skills, right? So I tell that to our guys, and I believe it with all my heart. So therefore, I have to coach like that. And that means I've got to give guys opportunities, and I have to search for the space where their gift will shine and help us win. So if you look at our box scores, I'm sure our sports information director wants to lose their mind because I mean, I'm scratching the lineup card right and left, putting, pinch hitters, pinch runners, defensive replacements, running out arms so that we can match up better. In a big situation, right? Left on left, or my righty slider guy who's got to wipe out stuff against their big donkey who swings for the downs, right? So I have to very intentionally use a lot of players in a game and throughout the course of a season. And it's awesome. Like it goes back to the early part of this conversation where, at the Division I level, there might be this trepidation, fear, and uncertainty. I get to operate in a space where I believe that I'm placed right now that gives me the unique opportunity where if I lose a game or I lose a big rivalry series to West Virginia State, I'm not getting fired, man. Like if my players are having a terrible experience, if they're not feeling loved, if they're not getting better, they're not getting opportunities, then yeah, I'm probably going to get called on the carpet for those types of things. But losing a game here or there is not going to be the end of the season, my career. I mean, we went 26-25 by our standards over the last decade. It was the most awful season in UC baseball history. But we played a ton of players and like in our season, just how our conference has worked. Salem University is just this placeholder where those games are written into our non-conference schedule to give us an even number of teams, but they're considered non-conference games. They don't impact our standings. So the 2 years I've been here, every time we play Salem, and this is no offense to Salem because they have beaten us and played better than us. I'm not like making excuses, but I can use some of my younger guys in those games and give them an opportunity and see, hey, is this guy ready for a little bit bigger opportunity? And so there are spaces throughout the year where I can do that and make some decisions that, again, at a higher level of baseball, I would never get to make, and not in a million years. So that's, I think, how I try to approach it.
Why wouldn't you be able to make those decisions at a higher level of baseball if you're the head coach? Even if you are the head coach and the decision maker at a higher level, like is it just the fear of getting fired?
Yeah, I think I could use the players, right? But let's be honest. If you're at Georgia, you're Justin Hare at Ohio State, like you better win some baseball games, right? And every one is very, very hard to win. And if you are not 100% certain that you're putting your absolute best players on the field at all times, or at least the best ones that are available to you in that moment, you're probably going to get some scrutiny for that, especially if you lose two or three of them. And now you dropped a series to Michigan or, some other rivalry game where, you put in some guys that are like, I don't know. Right. So I just think there's so much more pressure to win, and every game is so difficult to win that I feel like most coaches and if I'm honest, I would feel the pressure that no, I got a chance to win this game. I'm going to win this game. I'm not putting in my, fourth string shortstop just so he can get some reps and I can feel like, hey, I gave him an opportunity because the guy's been absolutely busting his butt and an awesome teammate in practice. Like that's probably just not going to happen, right? But I get to do that. So
Do you feel like throughout the season now with the portal and with the way college baseball is, like you said, you guys lost some guys to the portal. Are you feeling like you have to re-recruit guys or like try to find ways to convince guys? Or are you encouraging guys to go?
Yeah, I think that everybody is going to be in a unique position, right? I have two players, for example, on this year's roster. They'll be sophomores, started a ton of games as freshmen, and they've already said, like, hey, my long-term goal is to play at Division One. I'm like, awesome. Well, here's what you need to do. You need to get bigger, faster, stronger. You need to do XYZ in terms of your skill set. And yeah, let's go ball out and make it happen. Like that, that's part of this, right? I say to every recruit and to our coaching staff, our plan 1A, because character is so important to us, is to recruit great people, retain them for 4 years, see them graduates, give them an awesome experience here, win a ton of baseball games, help them become the men that they're called to be. But 1B is to consistently love guys into the next best opportunity for them. And I tell our players all the time that I love them, and I truly mean that. Like these kids are my sons, and um, it's like I get emotional when I'm talking to parents because I know that being entrusted with their son is such a precious gift, and I don't take that lightly ever. And so I'm actually going to love some of my players who are really, really good, and you know, Stetson calls for my 94, 95 mile an hour arms. Like, awesome, man. Yeah, go do that thing. I'd like to play in Stetson. Coach Trimper's awesome, and weather's fantastic. So, like those things are no brainers, right? Because that player is in a better position than what they are right now. Maybe they got some NIL money. Maybe they got a bigger scholarship offer. Um, Whatever the case may be. So that's part of this landscape, right? I don't know if the NCAA probably did the totality of the threat assessment of the Pandora's box they were opening up, but they've created a minor league system. It's absolutely the minor leagues. You see every year, Power Four teams sign certain players, then they cut them, and then they drop down to Division Two or junior college, or maybe a quote unquote lower level Division One, which really that's just a question of resources. I mean, all that semantics is just who has the most money in their bank account. It's not about the quality of the programs or teams and coaching. So that then Division Two, Division Three, JUCO guys are having awesome years. They're having tons of success, putting up great numbers, and then they get D1 opportunities, right? At potentially higher levels. They get called up. And so that's the nature of what we have. And I'm not going to fight that. I'm going to try to come up with a solution of how we can operate, be true to who we are as a program, and invest in players the right way and see them go chase whatever their dreams are.
Are you guys heavily involved in getting players in the portal? Like I would assume that might be a process that's maybe it's harder to know a player's character because you just have less time to be able to talk with them. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. But what's your thoughts on how you guys at Charleston approach the transfer portal in terms of getting players to come to you?
Yeah. So the summer portal we're involved in when we lose players, right? So every year um, we have a little bit different dynamic. So we have a JV program. We call it our AAA affiliate. And that's exactly how we treat it. All of our guys are together. We practice together. Nobody would know the difference if you're in AAA or if you're in the big leagues, other than who travels on the bus when we go to away trips. That is the only distinction whatsoever inside of our program. And so we play 50 games and then we play another 25 at AAA, and that gives guys opportunities to develop. So um, we recruit high school players to replace the guys that were graduating. So right now we're working on 26, for example. We will graduate 8 guys. And then I talked about my other 2 guys who already said, hey, I'm going to explore my options in the portal. So we're going to get 10 high school players to replace those guys. If we get to May and I have more guys who decide they're going to jump in the portal. That's when we look at the junior college players and portal guys as a space. The process actually is to our advantage by how slow it's going, because now
Mm,
I have a lot more time. Players are not rushing into decisions maybe the way they were 1, 2, 3 years ago. And so, we have summer leagues that are just concluding, and guys who are in the portal who wanted to see, hey, I want to have a full body of work throughout the season, and then come to an agreement. So like we still have 2 roster spots, and we're still talking to a handful of guys right now. So, and we've talked to them all summer, and so that's to our advantage. We do not do anything at the fall break, like because of what you said, because that timeline is so condensed, and I don't feel comfortable with the relationship and understanding who that person is to become a part of our program, especially at that midway point where you've started to establish some rapport and build the chemistry in that existing team. But that's it. Like we usually lose 1 or 2 guys at the winter break, but we don't replace them. We wait until the next recruiting cycle. So, in our case, we lose 2 guys, and in the winter, I'm looking for like we'll go out and look for 26s, high school players to try to replace those 2 guys and start that process. And maybe get out and see them one more time, or if we haven't seen them play yet during the high school season, and go from there.
What advice would you have for people in the recruiting process? Like one of the things that I would always say, the advice that I give anyway, is like you got to figure out like what you want and then just reverse engineer that in the sense of like, do you want to go to a place where you have a chance to play? Right? Is that something that's important to you? Do you want to go to a place, in this situation, Dean, where it's like you're playing for somebody who has, has a strong faith and incorporates that into their program? I guess is that important to you? That's the advice that I give to players. But I'm curious, maybe from your standpoint, you have more experience than I do in different areas of life and even in this game. Is that the right advice, or would you give different advice?
Yeah. So I think you leaned into the fundamental things that we talk about. So that reverse engineering concept is so beautiful. I absolutely love that. So I'm going to throw a question back at you, and then I'll figure it out. So how
Okay.
did you arrive at this concept of reverse engineering? Like what was that process of discovery for you? Because I don't hear a whole lot of people using that language.
Well, I guess I mean, in terms of like the context of what we're talking about right now, and when working with players in the recruiting process, I had noticed that there were certain players who did not care about playing Division I baseball. They only cared about going to the highest academic institution that they possibly could have gone to. And then I noticed other players, like they wanted to play Division I baseball. It could have been the worst Division I baseball program in the world, and they had no idea what that would be like. But that's all they wanted. And then there's others who was like, I just want to go to a place where I'm going to win. Like I don't need playing time, whatever, and I want to win. And then maybe I want to go to football games. Like I want to have that full college experience. And so I take a lot of time and I think to myself. I spend a lot of time by myself, which I maybe sounds kind of like a loser, but it helps me because I think it helps you come up with different things and think of things that in a world where there's just constant information thrown at you. Like I sleep when I go to bed at night. I actually will put my phone in my car, so there was no temptation at all to even look at it, even when I get up the next morning. So I do try to spend a lot of time thinking and coming and spending that time. I kind of just thought about those things, and I was like, okay, well, since there's different types of people out there, hence what you talked about earlier, everyone's just different. What's the best way I can get that information out of them and figure out what they want. And then that way, when I know what they want, then I can help educate them in the process. So in a nutshell, that's how I came up with it.
Gotcha. So one, you're not a loser. You're probably just an introvert like me. Like I totally
Yeah.
need to be alone to recharge, right? I love being around
Yep.
people. Absolutely fires me up to have conversations and engage people, and even in front of large groups. But when push comes to shove, I retreat by myself to have clarity and this sense of peace and calm and be able to think. So I love that.
Yeah.
And that shows an incredible self-awareness and discipline on your part. And to me, it sounds like you reverse engineered this problem of, all right, I'm in this college, recruiting service space. I don't know what the appropriate title you want me to use, but right, you're trying to help people ultimately accomplish their dreams and goals. And so how can I reverse engineer that out to have a process of understanding what this person is specifically trying to accomplish so that then I can ask them the right questions, give them the right advice, promote them to the right programs, right? Somebody says they want to be, a super high academic guy and they aspire to be Patriot League, Ivy League, Division three. Oh my gosh, there's so many Division three high academic programs
Oh, yeah.
that are so good at baseball, right? I'm going to push that guy, to that space, and I'm going to connect him in that sphere. So, love that, and that's all of life. If we all approached every decision and every component of our lives in that reverse engineering capacity, we'd probably be better off. So I applaud you for that. Um, and I think that when you can identify in the recruiting process um, people that align with what you're doing, and then get from them like, oh, okay, right. So like we're doing the same thing. Every initial conversation is one of the questions we ask is if if you were able to look back today on your college career and then say that was an amazing experience, what would it look like? Right. And so we're trying to parse that out so then we can see, do we fit in this space for you? And how do we fit in this space for you? And then if we don't feel like we actually fit, we're like, hey, like I've told tons of people, I'm like, who I think you need to talk to? Like this guy over here who is a much better academic program than us, or hey, this is a slightly bigger school that I think I really believe your skill set would play at. So I do that. Like I know coaches, and I'm not afraid to help people when we have the opportunity to do that, because very, very few. I have yet to meet a student athlete who said, Coach, my entire baseball career, I have dreamt of playing at a Division II program in West Virginia. Like, it just doesn't happen. So, so naturally, right, you have many people, as you mentioned, who have these D1 aspirations, and frankly, that's the only thing that most players are being sold. Like every, again, not every. That's terrible. Don't use imperatives that are absolutes. So many programs, high school, travel ball, whatever, are telling people Division I is the ultimate goal when they are not doing what you're doing and reverse engineering out. No, your ultimate goal looks a little bit different. Yes, it could be a Division I program. Absolutely, you could, but there are also a lot of other options that may be a better environment for you, right? Environment is what we're trying to discover. Can a person thrive, succeed, accomplish all the things that they aspire to do? And then can you add value to them in the environment you create for them? And so that to me is the ultimate piece of advice. Reverse engineer out, know exactly what you want. It goes back to identity, knowing who you are and what you want. And then what is the environment where I can become all that I am capable of being, right? Where am I going to flourish as a person, as a student, as a baseball player? And do I have to potentially take steps to get to my ultimate goal based on the new structure of things that were established, right? We have so many people who want to be Division I baseball players. Okay, well, the NCAA just potentially drastically cut the number of available options to be a Division I baseball player. But how can I go be in a great environment that helps me develop and helps shape me into the player who is Now, when I go out and play summer ball or I'm amongst fellow other D1 caliber players, do I hold my own or do I even shine? Am I the guy who stands out when a coach goes and watches a summer uh, college baseball game? Is it like, wow, that dude, there's something different about that guy? Oh, he plays at Division III Cortland State. Holy crap. Right. Like, because guess what? There's some dudes there
Yep.
in that program. And
Yeah.
so, um, there's just reverse engineer it, put yourself in the right environment for growth. And if you do those things consistently and don't make hasty decisions, don't microwave your experience and your process of reaching your end goal, right? That's the problem we all have. We all want it now. We all want it sooner, right? You get on campus, and I believe if you're in the right environment as a player, you're going to have a really great relationship with the coaching staff there. Hopefully, one that builds trust, so that if you have a conversation, and you're like, Coach, I really want to, play at the University of Kentucky. They're like, well, let's look at the University of Kentucky starting second baseman and see what that dude physically looks like, see what his skill set looks like, and how do you match up, and where do you need to address that problem, and let's go troubleshoot it and let's go work on it, man. Let's get after it. So if you have that, then I think you're able to have a really great perspective and ultimately have a great experience, even if it requires you a couple of steps along the way.
Yeah, that was really well put. First of all, I appreciate the compliment. There's a lot of different ways I could follow up with that. It reminds me a little bit when I don't know how much you know about my background, Dean. My playing career was pretty short lived, so it probably don't know much about it. But I did play independent professional baseball for a couple years in a very low, the lowest level. You can't get any lower professional baseball. It was in the Pecos League, and so I was telling this guy who I'd worked with in the past, and when I was younger growing up, I was like, "Hey, the dream is still to play in the major leagues. Like, I want to play in the major leagues." And he was like, "This is the first time anybody ever told me this," but he told me, he's like, "Well, you're playing for the wrong reason then." And I was like, "What do you like? What?" I'd never heard anybody say, like, everyone's goal was always playing the major leagues, and that was always my dream and goal. And he goes, "Yeah, but like the problem, like, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're by solely like viewing that as success, you can't control that. Like, that's something that's completely out of control. So you're playing the game for the wrong reason, because you're playing the game for something that you cannot control. And so it's going to rob you of the joy of being able to play the game, because you're playing for something you can't even control. And it took me years, honestly, for that message to actually really resonate. I was actually done playing and got into coaching, but part of that is what you're talking about and describing of the Division I thing. And I was there's a young player that I've worked with, and his mom. So shout out to Allison Whitney and Jordan Whitney. They're great people. And his mom one time, because this kid is a young kid. He's only 14, 15 years old. And with all the travel stuff and the logos going around here or there, playing on this team or that travel team, and it was the tryout season. And the mom goes to me one time, she goes, "We follow people. We don't follow logos." And I was like, I've never heard a parent tell me that before, ever in my life. Or it's like, yeah, we don't care about the logo of the program. Like, we want a good coach. Like, so we will follow coaches around, even if they stay with not the premier team or whatnot, because that's what we want to follow. We want to follow people. And so I thought of that a lot, and I was like, man, that's something that could be advice I give to people in the recruiting process too, where it's like, follow the people, man. Like, if you fell in love with a coach, you listen to this podcast, you listen to Dean, you're like, man, like, I want to be around that. I want to be in that environment. That's where you should go, not to some other place where you're just following a logo. And so I think just those two key concepts, I think, as well, are things that at least I'm trying to more resonate with. Because here's the thing too, as kids, they always say, like, well, could you envision yourself going to this school if the coaching staff changed, or if that. Well, I'll be honest, at 16, 17 years old, it's hard to envision yourself doing anywhere, living away from home, doing something you've never done before. So I don't even know if that's necessarily the best advice, because when I took my tour at Xavier University, I was like, I hate this place. It stinks. I don't ever want to go there. And I ended up going there, and I was the best 5 years of my life. So it's just, there's so many different elements. But so I do think that the people thing, I do think following people and not logos. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, and I applaud your parents and players for making that commentary and having that grasp of that concept. And I think, if I'm honest, we haven't figured it out, but we're trying to figure out how to connect players, potential recruits, to our players, right? To see how you fit in, because there's always, like, think about your own experience. What was day one like walking into the baseball facility or the locker room or the first team meeting at Xavier, right? What, like, describe, can you remember that day and what it felt like to you?
Yeah, I mean, I do vaguely remember. I remember being very nervous. I do remember being very nervous, very unsure of myself, just very probably there's some fear in there as well of just like I just didn't know where I stood. I didn't know if I fit in. I didn't. Just a lot of uncertainty. That's the biggest thing. I remember the feeling more than anything else.
Yes, right. So that powerful moment of like, crap, right? Probably a little bit of imposter syndrome. Did I make the right
Yep.
decision? All these things that are going through your head, and you're trying to find your space on that particular team, because we know that, especially as men, right? We really want to be part of some group and belong in some space, right? And you walk on campus for the first time, and you've been recruited, and the coach is telling you how awesome you are, and man, love you, definitely see you getting some awesome playing time and opportunities for us. Like, you're the best recruit in our class, or whatever you're being told. And then all of a sudden you walk in week one, there's 34 to 60 other guys in that room who probably heard a similar conversation, and you're like, oh, wait a second, what's going on here? And so, for us, like, we're exploring ways to try to connect players to our program earlier, so that day one doesn't feel quite so daunting. And I think that understanding the players and the environment, and from that perspective, I think will be really big for us if we can figure out how to do it the right way. Because, um, again, if you're trying to be around the right people, yes, the coaches are important, but those players are important too. That's why I think there's so much success in the recruiting in summer collegiate baseball, right? You're out playing with a guy from another program all summer. You really connect with that dude. He's a dog. And he's like, man, you know what? We got a spot for an outfielder. I'm just saying. Right? So those relational connections are so foundational to this process for us as humans. And to be able to do that better, to connect deeper, I think is going to be the X factor if somebody can figure it out.
What's one thing that you feel like if you could redo this past season, you would do differently?
Oh, great question. Uh, and I can only pick one because there's probably a lot. um, I think I would have been more intentional about how I handed off authority to my coaching staff, if that makes sense. Um,
Mhm.
so I've always been a pitching guy. I was pitching coach as an assistant coach. My first year here, I was the pitching coach. I was able to hire an awesome guy, first year coach, just out of college, Carter Lyles. He's going to be an absolute dude in this space. He is such an incredible pitching coach, and did an amazing job of connecting to our guys because he's only a year removed from playing, right? So he just has a different perspective than I do. And, like, there was just, if I'm honest, this, like, rub in me to be able to just be like, all right, here you go. Run the pitching staff completely, totally, without any oversight or input from me. And that that definitely caused some tension in the communication with some of our pitchers, because I'm saying one thing, Coach Lyles is saying another thing, and they're not always consistent in the messaging. And I think that really caused us to have some issues early in the season from a pitching perspective. And if you look at our ERA and some of the numbers early on, it was pretty ugly and sideways. So um, once I figured that out, that I needed to trust him before maybe he deserved to be trusted in some regards, then things noticeably shifted. So that's what I'm trying to get better at as a head coach. Is it seems almost duplicitous or somewhat ironic based on some of the things that I've said previously, but um, being able to trust my coaches completely in their space and just really make sure that from a philosophical standpoint, from who we're trying to be offensively, who we're trying to be as a pitching staff, those identity things, right? I direct and I make sure that I put up the guardrails for us, but giving our coaches a lot more freedom to operate in their individual space. Like that's what I have to do better at. And if I can do that and help coach them, right? Because one of my big things is to give guys their first opportunities in coaching. Like if you look at our coaching staff, every single person on my coaching staff being at Charleston's their first college baseball job. So um, that's that's what I have to improve at. I've got to coach my coaches better and give them guidance and direction while giving them freedom. And so I think I've just not balanced that out. Sometimes I give them too much freedom and not enough guidance. Sometimes too much guidance, not enough freedom. And there's a space there that I think gives assistant coaches the fulfillment that they need to feel like, hey, I'm empowered here. And I'm able to make mistakes with some freedom and realize that that's not catastrophic and things like that. So yeah, that's probably my big one.
Is it your assistant coach's job to let players know where they stand um, on the team, or do you feel like that is that your job as the head coach? And the only reason I ask that is this is just from what I've observed over the years, having worked with a lot of different college players, high school. I mean, just all levels. Honestly, is the I think a lot less players would actually transfer because of this too. Is I think the biggest issue is the communication issue in players not knowing where they stand consistently within their program, or if maybe they know where they stood at the fall meetings, but it changes throughout the season, or maybe a kid starts and he goes 0 for 4, and then he doesn't play again, and it's like, well, his brain just tagged him not getting any hits with now not playing. So that means the next time you put him in the lineup, he knows if he doesn't get any hits, he thinks he's not playing, and that may not be the case. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I think that's at least from what I've observed. And again, I've never coached in college. I've coached professional, but that's completely different in terms of rosters and things like that. So college is different. So maybe I'm coming at this from a different lens, but that is from what I've observed anyway, the biggest frustration I would say from players across the board at all of college baseball.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good observation. And so ultimately, all the hard decisions or the difficult conversations, the buck stops with me. That doesn't mean that our assistant coaches don't have that daily kind of interaction with somebody, or they're not the first person that a player is going to if they're not in the lineup the next day after an 0 for 4. Um, but and I have like probably a million other people. I have a 24-hour rule. So if you're frustrated at something, or I'm frustrated at something, we're going to give it 24 hours. We're going to let our emotions not be ruling the moment when we have a conversation, and then we'll go forward from that. So I spend a lot of Mondays and Tuesdays having meetings with players for sure, but that's okay. That's part of my job. And um, then I approach it, as I said, like I have a couple of my coaches want to be head coaches someday. And Kyle Watson, who's my associate head coach, my right hand guy, who's been with me for all 3 years that I've been here, like he has some more of those hard conversations than on my first year GA would. So because he wants to be a head coach at the college level, and he's been 6A Texas head coach, so it's pretty close to freaking college baseball for crying out loud. Some of these players have sounded, but
Yeah.
So, yeah, I empower him to have a conversation with some of the infielders or hitters because he runs those groups. Um, but, I think that's a leadership principle, right? We talked very early on in the conversation about different leadership principles. And I think if you're a very good leader, you accept the responsibility for all the bad things that go on and you carry the weight of the difficult things that have to happen. And when there's praise to be extended, you push that to the right place. And that's usually my leader.
Got it. Makes sense to me. Yeah, no, I definitely like that. I like how again you're getting your younger coaches. I like how you're giving guys first chances too, coaching in college baseball. I think that's awesome. My goal whenever I guess and we speak about reverse engineering. When I think about doing a podcast like this, when I have a college coach on, I always think of like, okay, what does success look like? And for me, it's like I want it to be an episode where the the coach or someone affiliated with the program would be able to copy the link and then give it to a recruit, be like, hey, this is a great sample. This is a great example of like what our program is going to be about, and for you to learn more about our program, and so to be able to just help promote the coach and the program. And I feel like we've already been talking an hour, and we've hit on a lot of different things. I'm sure we could have gone down each of the more rabbit holes of your background even tenfold. And so I'm sure we'll have to have you back on again, Dean. But I do feel like for the right player, I think this is a great episode to be able for them to listen to. And I think players will listen to this and want to play for you and want to be a part of your program. So I appreciate you coming on. Is there anywhere particular that you would send people who want to learn more about you or your program? Like, is it social media handles? Is it the website? Like, where would it be?
Yeah. UCWV underscore baseball. That's where we do everything through X and Instagram. We're pretty active on those in terms of our program. Um, TikTok, we got banned for something last year. I can't remember what we did. I thought it was fairly innocuous, but
That's because
apparently,
your FBI background, probably.
yeah, I have no idea what happened there. But and then all of our coaches very very active on X. I think that X is a very good platform, and maybe I do have Instagram, Dean Peterson at UCWV, but um, I'm on those things fairly regularly, but that's definitely a good way. Uh, I'm pretty straightforward. You go to our website, my cell phone number and email are on there, um, and so shoot me a text, call me, whatever. I might screen it first, but I'll get back to you. Um, and honestly, like the last thing that I would say about that is, I'm sure you give this advice, but make sure when you contact a coach, there's something personal and specific about that program as to why you want to be a part of what they're doing at that particular school. This doesn't just apply to Charleston, but wherever you're interested as a recruit, like be able to say, oh, I want to go to the University of Xavier because I love X, this element that is unique to what you do at that school. And if you can do that, coaches are like, oh yeah, because lots of coaches get a lot more emails and texts and DMs than I do, but that's a good way to sift through the people that actually care and have invested and done some research. So
Love that. Dean, appreciate you coming on.
yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been great. I feel like we could probably go for another couple hours, make this a Joe Rogan long form one. But enjoyed the conversation and just have a ton of respect for what you're trying to do in terms of creating different perspectives and truly reverse engineering the process for people so that you can help them in a genuine and authentic way rather than just like, oh yeah, I'm going to try to promote Patrick Jones and say I've got 5,000 D1 commits under my belt like they're
Yeah.
some sort of slashes. So I think that says a lot about your character as an individual, and you're doing things the right way. So I appreciate that a ton.
Thank you.